Greetings, this is Peter Alexander. In this video, I'm going to go through a very basic content publishing checklist for clothed characters. And by basic content publishing, I mean the very basic. It gets more complicated than this. Consider this the foundation, which you can use to build upon. If you reach the stage at which you want to publish a character, here are some things to consider. First, if your character is human, how does this human character look in comparison to other humans, even if this character is highly stylized? You don't want to have to create a world scaled specifically to your character unless you do. But the benefit of having interchangeable assets and props is that you can exist in a somewhat shared universe, even with contrasting styles. Since Character Creator does not support multiple characters simultaneously, and probably never will, I'd recommend bringing your character into iClone and comparing them to a standard model. Even though the stylized character is even shorter than the standard male character, his head is jarring in size. If I had not done this comparison, I honestly would have published him as is. I think I can retain the style I want if I scale his head down a bit. Back in Character Creator, I'm going to use the proportion editor to scale his head down maybe 15%. I'll use the Bone Manager to select his head, since it's difficult to do that using the Select tool. While I'm here, I'm going to adjust the bones in his arms so that they align better to his clavicle. Now I'm going to send the character back to iClone to take another look. If you're doing a multi-character content pack, you'll also want to compare characters to each other so that they exist in the same shared universe. I think this is way better. While there are drastic proportion differences between real and stylized, I feel the stylized character can exist and interact with props in the real world without too much of a clash. And now I want to save these changes both to the project file and as a separate body and head sliders. This character is basically a construction type worker, and while I've created some assets for him, they are designed around the base neutral avatar. I need to manipulate these assets so that they fit the stylized character. Make sure you save a copy of these assets in their basic neutral state, as you may want to retain this shape for standard shaped characters. These items already exist in the scene as accessories, not clothing. I'm going to send them over to ZBrush along with the character to manipulate them. So I'll select all of these items and then transfer them to ZBrush. I mostly use the Move and the 3D Gizmo tool to manipulate these items. If I use the smooth brush, it's on a very low intensity. There's no trick to this. Just try your best to retain the details while pulling with the clothing. Things like buttons, zippers, you're going to try to be delicate around, and definitely don't use your smooth brush around those. Something to note is that once your clothing is stretched to this degree, it will likely not conform well to your standard avatars. For this reason, you may want to save a version of the item as both standard clothing and fitted clothing. Since these items existed previously as accessories, I am only updating their vertex positions. I will transfer weights separately. It's your choice whether or not to transfer weights to headwear or leave them as an accessory. I generally prefer to leave it as an accessory, and it's probably a good idea to allow customers to manipulate the item as well. How you create your hair, again, is a preference. For a character like this, he could have realistic, semi-realistic, or very simple hair. I'll give him very simple hair, especially since it's very easy to create and demonstrate. I'm using a mask to extract a block of polygons. I will then turn off adaptive while keeping groups to get a nice basic hair mesh. When you extract from a surface with thickness, you'll get at least 3 groups: the extraction source, the thickness area, and the back face portion. I leverage these groups to create a proper edge flow in ZRemesher. When I'm going to create UVs, I merge 2 of the groups to create 2 UV tiles, usually. But there is no rule, and it depends on the complexity of the object. A technical artist might look at these UVs in topology and frown, but honestly, the source avatar is already optimized for animation. You don't need to go crazy with perfection. And now I'm going to create some Homer Simpson style comb over strands. The eyebrows will go through a similar process. As I mentioned in another video, keeping your topology low resolution is going to give you much better control over the end result, whether you're creating hair or clothing or entire avatars. It's good practice to give your meshes proper names before they are imported into Character Creator. While you can change the name of your item in the scene hierarchy, and you can change the material name, your mesh will retain the name it was originally imported with. I don't think there are any rules regarding mesh names as long as they kind of make sense. I always transfer hair as an accessory rather than as a clothing item, because it will need to be converted to an accessory anyway before becoming a hair item. For hair, I am copying the roughness channel's gray texture, pasting it onto the base color, then scaling it up in a texture application. For now, I'm just using a solid brown color. You want to test your character's animation and poses. The more variations, the better. That way you'll be able to identify any issues with weight maps, especially on clothing. The arm has caught some of the code during the weight map transfer process. I'm going to weight this manually in the skin weights editor, but it's still going to retain a deformed position. So I'm going to go back to ZBrush and transfer the mesh back over. It'll overwrite the vertex positions here, and it'll fix the mesh for the most part. I'll provide some tips on weight mapping in another video. Weight mapping is not the most fun process, but it's generally required at this stage. Automated tools can only bring you so far. Anyways, I will send this vest back over to Character Creator, and it will overwrite the deformation issues caused by the weight map changes. You can also smooth out any issues with the mesh editor. This is just my preferred method since I have ZBrush. Just be aware of this method. Character Creator and ZBrush may not be aligned fully if your character now has boots or footwear. There's obviously more to content standards and publishing a character than what I've provided in this short video. My goal is just to provide a foundation to get you started. Things like how to optimize a facial profile, proper UV layouts, texturing, sculpting, things of that nature have been provided or will be provided in official realism videos, and I will likely have my own videos in the near future. As with any advice I give, I cannot go beyond the limits of my own knowledge. If you know better, I am always open to hearing tips from other users and content creators. But for now, that's all. Thanks for watching.